It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning. The kind of day where you just want to be outside, feeling the warm sun on your face and the soft grass under your feet. I was in my yard working hard on something special, a brand new garden trellis. Now, if you don't know what a trellis is, it's just a simple wooden frame. I made it myself with some pieces of wood and a few nails. The plan was to let my flowers climb up it so they could grow tall and pretty. I love flowers, red ones, yellow ones, even purple ones. They make my yard look happy. So there I was, hammering away, tap, 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 with a big smile on my face. I wasn't bothering anyone. I'm not the kind of guy who makes trouble. Nope, not me. Everyone in the neighborhood knows I'm the quiet guy. I keep to myself, mind my own business, and just try to enjoy my little corner of the world. But not everyone saw it that way. Oh no. Across the street lived a lady named Karen, and when I say Karen, I mean that Karen, you know the type, the kind of person who's always watching, always complaining, always sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. She was like a hawk, peeking out from behind her curtains, her sharp eyes looking for something, anything to get mad about. If a dog barked too loud, she'd call it a public disturbance. That's a fancy way of saying she thought it was annoying and wanted everyone to know. If kids rode their bikes down the street, laughing and having fun, she'd yell, "Too noisy." She'd even write little notes and stick them on people's doors, telling them what they were doing wrong. Karen thought she was the boss of the whole neighborhood. And me, well, I was about to become her next big problem. She didn't like my trellis one bit, but here's the funny part, she had no idea what was coming her way. Not a clue. And trust me, it was going to be a wild ride. Let me paint you a picture of that morning. The sky was blue, not a cloud in sight. Birds were chirping, hopping from tree to tree. I could hear the soft hum of a lawnmower a few houses down. It was peaceful. My yard isn't huge, but it's mine. I've got a little patch of grass, a couple of bushes, and now this trellis I was building. I'd been planning it for weeks. I went to the store, picked out the wood, nice, smooth pieces that smelled like pine, and brought them home. I even drew a little picture of what I wanted it to look like. Nothing fancy, just a frame about as tall as me with crisscross lines for the flowers to grab onto. I'm not a builder or anything. I just like making things with my hands. It makes me feel good, like I'm adding something nice to the world. So there I was, kneeling in the dirt, my hammer in one hand and a nail in the other. Tap, tap, tap. The trellis was starting to take shape. I'd already got the bottom part stuck in the ground, and now I was adding the top. Sweat was dripping down my forehead, but I didn't mind. I was having fun. Every now and then I'd step back and look at it, thinking, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I imagined my flowers growing up it, maybe some daisies or those twisty vines with little purple blooms. My yard was going to look awesome. I wasn't hurting anyone. I wasn't making noise. Well, okay, maybe a little with the hammer, but nothing crazy. I was just a guy enjoying his Saturday, doing something he loved. But then I felt it. You know that feeling when someone's watching you, like little prickles on the back of your neck. I looked up, and sure enough, there she was, Karen, standing at her window, her arms crossed, her face all scrunched up like she'd just eaten a sour lemon. I could see her through the gap in her curtains. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She was staring right at me, and I knew what that look meant. Trouble, big trouble. I tried to ignore her at first. Maybe she'll go away, I thought. Maybe she's just curious. But deep down, I knew better. Karen wasn't the type to let things go. If she didn't like something, she'd make sure you knew about it, and she'd make sure everyone else knew too. I kept hammering, pretending I didn't see her. Tap, tap, tap. But my heart started beating a little faster. I've lived here long enough to know how Karen works. She's like a storm cloud. You can see her coming, and you know it's going to get messy. Once she got mad because Mr. Jenkins down the street painted his mailbox blue. Blue, she said it was against the rules, and called a big meeting just to complain about it. Another time, she told the kids they couldn't play tag in their own yards because it was dangerous. She even tried to tell Mrs. Lopez that her cat was too loud. Her cat. Who thinks a cat is too loud? Karen, that's who. And now it was my turn. My little Trellis, my happy project, was about to set her off. I could feel it. Here's the thing about me, I don't like fights. I'm not the guy who yells back or gets in people's faces. I just want to live my life, grow my flowers, and be left alone. Everyone in the neighborhood knows that. Mr. Jenkins calls me the quiet one. Mrs. Lopez says I'm sweet as pie. Even the kids wave at me when they ride by on their bikes. I'm not out here causing problems. I don't throw loud parties or leave trash everywhere. I'm just me, a regular guy with a hammer and a dream of a pretty garden. But Karen, she didn't care about that. To her, I wasn't just a guy building a trellis. I was a rule breaker, a troublemaker, someone who needed to be stopped, and she was going to make sure I knew it. So there I was, minding my own business, when I heard her front door slam. Bam! It was loud enough to make the birds fly off the trees. I looked up, and there she was, marching across the street toward me. Her slippers slapped the pavement, slap, 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 and her bathrobe flapped behind her like a cape. She had her phone in one hand, waving it around like a weapon. Her hair was all messy, like she'd just rolled out of bed, but her eyes were wide and angry. Oh boy, I thought, here we go. I put my hammer down and wiped my hands on my jeans, trying to stay calm. I didn't want a fight. I just wanted to finish my trellis, but Karen had other plans. She stopped right at the edge of my yard, her hands on her hips. "What do you think you're doing?" she shouted. Her voice was loud and sharp, like a teacher scolding a kid who forgot his homework. I blinked at her. I'm building a trellis," I said, keeping my voice nice and even. "It's for my flowers." I pointed at it, hoping maybe she'd see how small it was and leave me alone. But nope, her face got even redder. "A trellis," she snapped. "You can't just put that up, it's ugly." "It's against the rules." I frowned. Rules? What rules? I'd never heard of any rule about trellises, but Karen didn't care about that. She was already tapping on her phone, muttering to herself. "I'm calling the police," she said. "This is ridiculous." I couldn't believe it. The police, over a trellis. It was just wood and nails. It wasn't even tall enough to block her view. But Karen was serious. She held the phone to her ear, glaring at me like I'd robbed a bank or something. "Yes, hello 911, she said, her voice all dramatic. "I've got a neighbor breaking the rules. He's putting up an ugly structure in his yard." I just stood there, my mouth open. This was nuts, totally nuts. But here's the best part. She had no idea what was about to happen. While she was busy trying to ruin my day, something big was brewing, something she never saw coming. And trust me, it was going to turn everything upside down. It was right around noon, and the sun was high in the sky, making everything warm and bright. I just finished putting up my trellis. Yep, it was all done. The wood was nailed together nice and tight, standing up straight in my yard like a little ladder for my flowers to climb. I stepped back to look at it, wiping sweat off my forehead with the back of my hand. It wasn't big, just a small thing, not even 3 feet tall. I was proud of it, though. It looked good, and I couldn't wait to see my flowers grow all over it. I was smiling, thinking about how pretty my yard would be soon. Everything felt perfect, that is, until I heard her voice. It came out of nowhere, sharp and loud, like someone scratching a chalkboard with their nails. "Hey," she yelled, "you can't just put that ugly thing up without HOA approval." I froze. Oh no, it was Karen. I turned my head and saw her storming across the street, moving fast like a mad bull. Her slippers went slap, slap, slap on the pavement, and her bathrobe flapped behind her. She had her phone in her hand, holding it up like it was a sword or something. Her eyes were locked on me, glaring so hard I could feel it. She looked at me like I'd done something awful, like I'd committed a big crime instead of just building a tiny trellis. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. I didn't want to fight, I never do. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice nice and soft, "it's just a trellis. It's not even 3 feet tall." I pointed at it, hoping she'd see how small it was and maybe chill out. But nope, Karen wasn't having any of it. She shook her head so fast her messy hair bounced around. "It's an eyesore," she shouted. "A total eyesore. I'm calling the police. This is against the rules." Her voice was loud enough that I bet the whole street could hear her. I rolled my eyes. Rules? What rules? As far as I knew, there was no rule about trellises. Karen loved making stuff up, though. She'd say anything to get her way. I watched her stand there in my driveway, huffing and puffing like she'd just run a race. Her face was red and her eyes were all squinty with anger. She started tapping on her phone, her fingers moving fast. "I'm not kidding," she said, looking up at me with a mean smirk. "I'm calling 911 right now. You're ruining the neighborhood." I couldn't believe it. Ruining the neighborhood over a little wooden frame. It was crazy, but I could tell she wasn't joking. Karen was serious. She held the phone to her ear and started talking, her voice all dramatic like she was in a movie. "Hello, 911. Yes, I've got a problem. My neighbor's breaking the rules. He put up this ugly thing in his yard and it's ruining everything." I just stood there, my hands in my pockets, staring at her. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to laugh because it was so silly. The police for a trellis, come on, but another part of me was annoyed. I'd worked hard on that trellis. It wasn't hurting anyone. Why was she making such a big deal out of it? I looked at my trellis again. It was just wood and nails, sitting there all quiet and harmless. It wasn't loud, it wasn't ugly, it was just mine. Something I made to make my yard nicer. But to Karen, it was like I'd built a giant monster or something. She kept talking on the phone, packing back and forth in my driveway. "Yes, officer," she said, "it's an emergency. He didn't ask the HOA and it's against the rules." I shook my head. The HOA, that's the group that makes rules for our neighborhood, didn't say anything about trellises. I'd checked the little book of rules we all got when we moved in. No trellis rules anywhere. Karen was just making it up like she always did. She loved being in charge, telling people what to do. If your grass was too long, she'd complain. If your car was parked a little crooked, she'd write you a note. She even told Mr. Jenkins his blue mailbox was against the rules, even though it was. That's just how Karen was, bossy and loud and always looking for a fight. I tried to stay cool. Karen, I said again, it's not a big deal, it's tiny, it's not blocking anything. But she didn't even look at me, she just waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. No, 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 she snapped. You don't get to decide that. I say it's ugly and that's that. She turned her back to me, still talking on the phone. Yes, officer, he's arguing with me now. Can you come quick? I sighed. Arguing? I wasn't arguing. I was just trying to explain. But with Karen, there was no explaining. She didn't listen. She never did. I leaned against my trellis, crossing my arms. Okay, fine. If she wanted to call the police, let her. I wasn't scared. I hadn't done anything wrong. My trellis wasn't against any real rules. I knew that. But still, it made me mad. Why couldn't she just leave me alone? I wasn't hurting her. I wasn't hurting anyone. All I wanted was to enjoy my Saturday, build my trellis, and watch my flowers grow. Was that too much to ask? To Karen, I guess it was. She stood there, tapping her foot, waiting for the police to answer her. She looked so smug, like she'd already won. Like she was the queen of the street and I was just some nobody she could boss around. But here's the thing, Karen didn't know something big. She thought she was in control, calling the police on me like that. She thought she was so smart, catching me with my ugly trellis. But she had no idea her own trouble was sneaking up on her. Yep, while she was busy yelling at me, something else was happening, something she never saw coming. Her own mess, her own big messy secret was about to crash right into her. Can you guess what it was? Can you imagine what she'd done to get herself in hot water? Oh, it's good, really good, but you'll have to wait just a little longer to find out. Trust me, it's worth it. I stood there watching her huff and puff, and I started to feel a little less mad. Why? Because I could tell this wasn't going to end the way she thought. Karen was so busy trying to get me in trouble that she didn't see the storm coming her way. It was almost funny in a way. She was waving her phone around, acting like she was the big boss, but she didn't know the truth. She didn't know her own mess was about to catch up with her fast. I almost felt bad for her. Almost, but not really. After all, she was the one picking a fight over nothing. She was the one calling 911 like my trellis was some kind of crime scene. The air felt thick, like something big was about to happen. I could hear Karen's voice getting louder, more annoyed. Yes, I'm still here, she said into the phone. He's just standing there, acting like he's innocent. Innocent? I was innocent. I hadn't done anything wrong. But to Karen, that didn't matter. She wanted me to feel small, to feel like I'd messed up. She wanted everyone to think I was the bad guy. Well, too bad for her. Things were about to flip upside down, and she had no clue. Her own trouble was knocking on the door, and she was too busy yelling at me to hear it. So there we were, me, leaning on my trellis, and Karen stomping around my driveway talking to 911. The sun was still shining, the birds were still chirping, but everything felt tense. Like the calm before a big storm, I didn't say anything else. I just waited. Karen thought she had me cornered, but she didn't know what was coming. Her own mess was about to smack her right in the face, and I couldn't wait to see it. Can you guess what she'd done? Can you think of something so wild it'd bring trouble right to her doorstep? Hang on tight, you're about to find out. So there I was, standing in my yard, leaning against my little trellis. The sun was still shining bright, and everything seemed normal except for Karen. She was going nuts, yelling into her phone like she was the star of some big drama show. "Yes, officer," she shouted, her voice loud and bossy. "He's breaking HOA rules. I demand you come right now." She kept packing back and forth in my driveway, her slippers slapping the ground, slap, slap, slap. Every few seconds, she'd look at me and smirk like she thought she'd already won. Like she was so smart and I was just some dumb guy who didn't know better. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, my arms crossed, waiting. I wasn't scared. I knew my trellis wasn't against any real rules. But Karen, she was acting like I'd built a giant tower or something awful. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something weird. A police car was rolling down our street. It was moving slow, real slow, like it was sneaking up on something. The lights weren't flashing and there was no siren, just a quiet car creeping along. I squinted to get a better look. That's strange, I thought. Why were the police here already? Karen was still on the phone with 911, so they couldn't be here because of her call yet. Maybe they were just driving around, checking the neighborhood. That happens sometimes, right? Cops patrol streets to make sure everything's okay. I shrugged to myself. Probably nothing, I figured. I turned my eyes back to Karen, who was still in full drama mode. She didn't see the car. Nope, not at all. She was way too busy yelling about my illegal garden project. "It's an eyesore," she told the person on the phone. "He didn't ask anyone, he just put it up. You need to send someone now." Her voice was so loud I bet the birds in the trees could hear her. She waved her free hand around, pointing at my trellis like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. That smirk on her face, it was big and mean. She thought she had me trapped. She thought the police were going to come rushing over, tell me I was wrong, and make me take my trellis down. I could see it in her eyes. She was loving this, thinking she was the big winner. I just leaned against my trellis a little more, feeling the wood under my hands. Let her talk, I thought. She's not going to win this one. But then something happened. The police car, it didn't keep going like I thought it would. It stopped, and not at my house. Oh no, it stopped right in front of Karen's house. My eyebrows went up. Wait a minute, I thought. What's going on? Two cops stepped out of the car. They were tall and serious, with those dark uniforms and shiny badges. One of them was holding a clipboard and the other had his hands on his hips. They didn't look happy. They didn't look like they were here for a friendly visit. I glanced at Karen. She was still yelling into her phone, her back to the street. She didn't see them, not yet. She had no idea the cops were standing right by her own front door. I tilted my head, watching. This was getting interesting. Why were they at her house? I mean, she was the one calling 911 on me. Shouldn't they be coming over here if they were here because of her call? But no, they were at her place, looking all stern and quiet. I started to wonder, maybe this wasn't about my trellis at all. Maybe something else was going on, something big. My heart beat a little faster, not because I was scared, but because I was curious. What was happening? What didn't Karen know? I kept my eyes on the cops, waiting to see what they'd do next. Karen kept ranting. "Yes, officer," she said into the phone. "He's still here, acting like he didn't do anything wrong. This is ridiculous." She spun around, pointing at me again, her face all red and angry. That's when one of the cops, the one with the clipboard, stepped forward. He cleared his throat and called out loud and clear, "Ma'am, are you Karen Thompson?" His voice cut through the air like a knife. It wasn't mean, but it was strong. You could tell he meant business. And just like that, everything stopped. Karen froze. I mean, she froze. Mid-sentence, her mouth still open, her phone still up to her ear. She looked like a statue stuck in place. The smirk on her face, gone, wiped away in a second. Her eyes got wide and her face turned pale, like all the color just drained out of it. She didn't say anything. She didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the ground, like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. I looked at her, then at the cops, then back at her. What was going on? Why did they want her? My trellis was that big a deal, right? This had to be something else, something way bigger. The cop waited a second, then said it again. Ma'am, Karen Thompson. He took a step closer, his boots crunching on the gravel by her yard. Karen finally snapped out of it. She turned her head real slow, like she was afraid to look. When she saw the cop standing there, her phone slipped a little in her hand. She caught it just before it fell, but her fingers were shaking. Yes, she said, her voice all small and wobbly now. No more yelling, no more bossy tone. She sounded scared, really scared. As I couldn't help it, I leaned forward a little, trying to hear better. This was wild. What had Karen done? Why were the cops asking for her? The second cop stepped up now, his hands still on his hips. He didn't say anything yet, but he was watching her close, like he was ready to move if she tried something. The first cop, the one with the clipboard, looked down at his papers. We need to talk to you, he said. Can you step over here, please? He pointed toward her house. Karen blinked fast, like she was waking up from a dream. What? She stammered. Talk to me. Why, I'm the one who called you. He's the problem. She pointed at me again, but her hand was shaking so bad it looked silly. The cops didn't even look my way. They just kept staring at her. I stayed quiet, leaning on my trellis. My heart was pounding now, but not because I was in trouble. Oh no, I wasn't the one in trouble here. Karen was. I could feel it. Something was up, something she didn't expect. She thought she was so clever, calling 911 on me, acting like she was the big boss of the neighborhood. But now she looked like a kid who got caught sneaking cookies. Her face was all white, her eyes darting around. She didn't know what to do. For the first time ever, Karen didn't have a quick answer. She didn't have a loud comeback. She just stood there, looking lost. I glanced at the cops again. They weren't smiling. They weren't mad either, just serious. The one with the clipboard flipped a page, reading something. The other one took a step closer to Karen's yard. They weren't here for me. They weren't here for my trellis. They were here for her, and she didn't even know why yet. Or maybe she did. Maybe she knew exactly why, and that's why she looked so scared. I started to think, what could Karen have done? She was always bossing people around, sure, but why would the police care about that? It had to be something bigger, something secret, something she'd been hiding. Karen finally hung up her phone, her hands still shaky. I don't understand, she said, her voice all high and squeaky. I called about him. She pointed at me one more time, but it was weak now, like she didn't even believe herself. The cop with the clipboard shook his head. This isn't about him, he said. This is about you. About her. My eyes got wide. Whoa, this was getting good, really good. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish out of water. She didn't know what to say. For once, Karen was speechless. And me, I just stood there watching it all, trying not to grin. Whatever was happening, it was going to be big. Oh, you're gonna love this next part. Stick around, it's about to get even wilder. The air felt heavy, like something huge was about to happen. I was still leaning on my trellis, watching everything unfold in my yard. Karen was standing there, her phone pressed to her ear, her face all pale and shaky. She'd just heard the cop call her name, "Ma'am. Are you Karen Thompson?" And she'd frozen like a deer caught in headlights. The cop with the clipboard took a step closer to her. His boots crunched on the gravel loud in the quiet street. He held up that clipboard like it was something important, something serious. "We've been trying to reach you, Ms. Thompson," he said, his voice calm but strong. "We've got a warrant here." "A warrant?" My jaw dropped. I mean, it just fell open and I couldn't close it. A warrant for Karen. I didn't even know what that word meant at first, but I could tell it was bad, really bad. Karen's phone slipped right out of her hand and hit the ground with a little thud. She didn't even try to pick it up. She just stared at the cop, her eyes big and round, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. What?" she stammered, her voice all small and wobbly. She didn't sound like the loud, bossy Karen anymore. She sounded scared, like a little kid who got caught doing something naughty. I blinked, trying to figure it out. What was going on? Why did the cops have a warrant for her? I thought she'd called them about me, about my trellis. But this was something else, something way bigger. The cop with the clipboard didn't smile or anything. He just kept talking like it was no big deal to him. "Ms. Thompson," he said, "we've been looking for you all week." All week. My head spun. They weren't here because of her 911 call. They were already coming for her before she even picked up the phone. I couldn't believe it. What had she done? What could Karen have done to make the police come after her like this? Then it all came out. The cop started explaining, and oh boy, it was wild. Turns out, Karen wasn't just the annoying lady who yelled about rules and trellises. Nope, she'd been doing something sneaky, something really bad. She'd been scamming people online. Scamming, that means she was tricking people, pretending to sell stuff she didn't even have. Furniture like chairs and tables and couches. She'd put up pictures on the internet, tell people, "Hey, buy this from me," and take their money. But here's the kicker, she didn't own any of that stuff. It was all fake. She'd just take the cash and run, leaving people with nothing. No chairs, no tables, no nothing. Can you believe that? Karen, the lady who acted like she was perfect, was a big fat liar. Someone finally got mad enough to tell the police. They reported her and the cops started looking for her. They'd been tracking her down all week, trying to catch her. And guess what? While she was busy calling 911 on me, thinking she was so smart, they were already on their way to her house. I mean, talk about bad timing. She thought she was getting me in trouble, but the whole time, she was the one in hot water. The cop flipped a page on his